They were already corpses. They just hadn't realized it yet. In a frozen valley that GPS couldn't find and maps refused to acknowledge. Sergeant Cole Vance and 7 men were dying by inches. The snow drank their blood. The cold shattered their bones. Radios screamed static. Ammunition counted down like a timer. And somewhere in the white nothing, a sniper owned every breath they took. Then she came. Down a cliff that should have killed her, bare hands against sub-zero wind. Tattoos covering both arms. Young enough to be someone's kid's sister. Calm enough to be death itself. How many shooters? No fear, no hesitation, just absolute terrifying precision. She didn't ask if they needed help. She already knew they were out of time. Before we begin, stick with me until the very end of this story. Drop a like and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this tale has traveled. Now, let's dive in. The valley didn't have a name, not officially. The brass called it Grid Reference Tango Whiskey 7. The maps labeled it Undesignated Territory. The locals? They didn't talk about it at all. They just looked away when you asked, like mentioning it out loud was enough to invite something dark into your life. Sergeant Cole Vance didn't care what it was called. He cared that it was trying to kill him. Contact left, 200 meters, ridgeline. The voice crackled through his headset, Corporal Rains firing from behind a boulder that wouldn't stop bullets for long. Vance pressed himself flatter against the frozen earth, his breath coming out in short, controlled bursts that turned to ice crystals before they hit the ground. Gunfire ripped through the air, not the wild spray of amateurs. Controlled bursts, disciplined, professional. These weren't insurgents, they were hunters, and Vance's unit was the prey. "Shepard, I need eyes on that ridgeline," Vance barked into his radio. Static answered him. "Shepard!" More static. Then a voice, faint and breaking apart like glass. "Can't. Signals. Interference." Vance swore under his breath. Communications had been spotty since they'd entered the valley 3 hours ago. Now they were gone completely. No satellite link, no command, no extraction. They were alone. He risked a glance over the rock. The valley stretched out before him, a brutal, beautiful nightmare of snow and stone. Steep cliffs rose on both sides like the walls of a cathedral built by something that hated humanity. The wind howled through gaps in the rock, carrying sounds that might have been voices or might have been nothing at all. Movement. Vance's eyes tracked it automatically. There, on the eastern slope, maybe 400 meters out, a figure, dark against the snow, moving with the kind of confidence that came from owning the terrain. Tango spotted, east slope, 400 meters. "I see him," Private Lou called back. "Wait, there's another one. North side, high ground." Vance felt his jaw tighten. They were being flanked. Classic hammer and anvil. Pin them down from the front, then sweep in from the sides and finish them. "Mendez, how's Carter?" A pause. Too long. "Sarge, he's not good. Bullet went through his thigh, nicked the femoral. I've got pressure on it, but he's losing blood fast." Vance closed his eyes for half a second. Carter was 22. Kid from Tennessee with a drawl that made everyone smile and a work ethic that made everyone respect him. He'd been first over the wall during their last op, first to volunteer for night watch, first to share his rations when someone ran short. Now he was bleeding out in the snow. "Keep pressure on it. We're getting out of here." "How?" That was Rains again, his voice tight with the kind of controlled panic that came from realizing you were well and truly screwed. "We're pinned down, comms are dead, and we've got maybe 200 rounds between all of us." "Then we make them count." Vance shifted position, bringing his rifle up. An M4, reliable as sunrise, though the cold was making the action sluggish. He'd have to watch for jams. Another burst of gunfire. This time it came from behind them. They'd completed the encirclement. "Contact rear," Lou's voice went up half an octave. "They're behind us." Vance's mind raced through the tactical situation like he was reading a map. Enemy forces on 3 sides. No communications. Limited ammunition. 1 man down and dying. High ground completely compromised. The textbook answer was surrender. The real-world answer was that these guys weren't taking prisoners. "Listen up!" Vance kept his voice level, commander calm, even though his heart was trying to hammer its way out of his chest. We move in two-man teams. Rains, you're with Liu. Shepard, Ortega, you've got rear security. Mendez, you stay with Carter. The shot came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Specialist Ortega, 24, engaged, supposed to rotate home in 3 weeks, jerked backward like he'd been yanked on invisible strings. The back of his helmet exploded outward in a spray of red that looked black against the white snow. He was dead before he hit the ground. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Somewhere out there, impossible to see and impossible to locate, a sniper had just proven they could kill any one of them whenever they felt like it. Oh God! That was Shepard, young and shaking. Oh God, oh God, oh... Shepard! Vance's voice cracked like a whip. Lock it down! But Shepard wasn't listening. He was staring at Ortega's body, at the way the blood was already freezing into the snow, turning it into something that looked like a cherry slushie, and his breathing was coming faster and faster. And another shot. Shepard screamed and dropped, clutching his shoulder. Not a kill shot. The sniper had put one through his shoulder blade, precise enough to shatter bone without hitting anything immediately fatal. The message was clear. I can kill you whenever I want. Right now, I want you to suffer. Mendez, get to Shepard! I can't leave Carter. Now! Mendez moved low and fast, combat crawling through the snow. Bullets kicked up around him, but none found their mark. He reached Shepard and started pulling him back toward cover, the kid screaming the whole way. Vance's count was down to 6. 1 dead, 1 dying from blood loss, 1 shot and traumatized, 3 effectives if you were being generous. He tried the radio again. Any station, this is Talon 6. We are under heavy fire and taking casualties. Requesting immediate QRF and air support. How copy? Static, just static. And underneath it, something that might have been laughter. Sarge Vlat, Rains had crawled up next to him, his face pale under the dirt and the cold. We need to move, now. That sniper's got us zeroed. We stay here, we die here. Move where? They've got every approach covered. I don't know, but... The drone sound came next. Not the big ones. Something small. Reconnaissance, probably. But Vance had seen enough combat footage to know that recon drones had a habit of becoming attack drones real quick. Lou spotted it first. Eyes up. UAV, 11 o'clock. There it was, a small quadcopter, maybe 2 feet across, hovering about 100 meters out. Its camera was pointed directly at them. They were being studied, evaluated, prepared for execution. Take it down, Vance ordered. Rains raised his rifle, tracked the movement, fired a 3-round burst. Missed. The drone juked left, smooth and responsive. Military grade, not some hobbyist toy. Rains fired again. The drone dropped 10 feet, dodged right, and suddenly Vance realized it wasn't just watching them. It was mapping their positions, feeding targeting data to whoever was calling the shots. Everybody move, now, fall back to... The mortar round hit 30 meters away. The explosion wasn't huge. They weren't trying to obliterate the unit, just heard them. The shockwaves still lifted Vance off his feet and slammed him into the frozen ground hard enough to make his vision go white at the edges. His ears rang. His lungs felt collapsed. Blood ran down from somewhere above his left eye. He blinked, tried to focus. Another mortar. Closer this time. 20 meters. They were walking the fire in. Professional, methodical, inevitable. Vance pushed himself up on shaking arms. Around him, the unit was scattered. Lou was crawling toward better cover. Mendez was trying to drag both Carter and Shepard. Rains was shouting something, but Vance couldn't hear it through the ringing in his ears. This was it. This was how they died. Not in some heroic last stand, not going down swinging, just picked apart by an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't fight, couldn't even identify. The valley had them, and the valley didn't let go. Vance looked up at the cliffs surrounding them. Steep, unclimbable, no escape routes. Whoever had designed this ambush had been thorough. They'd studied the terrain, waited for the right moment, and now they were just finishing the job. He thought about home, about his sister, who'd begged him not to re-enlist, about the bar in Houston where he'd promised his buddies he'd buy the first round when he got back, about all the stupid, mundane things that suddenly seemed impossibly precious because he was never going to experience them again. Another mortar. 15 meters. The next one would be close enough to kill. Vance closed his eyes, then opened them. Because something was moving on the cliff face. Something impossible. The western cliff was a sheer wall of rock and ice, maybe 200 feet of vertical. Nothing that would kill any climber stupid enough to try it. But something was coming down it anyway. Fast. Too fast to be careful. Too controlled to be falling. What the hell? Rains had seen it too. The figure, small, compact, was descending the cliff face like gravity was optional. No ropes, no harness, just hands and feet finding holds that shouldn't exist, moving with a fluid confidence that made Vance think of water flowing downhill. In 30 seconds, the figure covered ground that should have taken an hour. They dropped the last 20 feet and landed in a crouch that absorbed the impact like it was nothing, then stood. It was a woman. Young, maybe mid-20s, though the way she moved made age feel irrelevant. Asian features, though Vance couldn't place the specific ethnicity. Short, dark hair whipping in the wind, wearing cargo pants and a thermal jacket that had seen better days. And tattoos. Both arms were covered in them, visible even in the cold because she wasn't wearing gloves. The ink ran from her wrists up past where her jacket sleeves ended, intricate patterns that looked like tally marks. 17 of them, arranged in groups of 5 with diagonal lines crossing through them, like she was counting something or someone. She walked toward them with a ground-eating stride, unbothered by the bullets that had everyone else pinned down, seemingly unaware of the drone still circling overhead or the mortars that kept falling in a tightening pattern. Vance tried to speak. His voice came out as a croak. Who? She covered the last 30 feet in seconds and dropped into cover beside him, smooth and practiced. Up close, Vance could see her eyes, dark, calm, completely, utterly unafraid. She looked at him, then at the rest of the scattered unit, then at Carter's blood spreading across the snow. How many shooters? Her voice was quiet. American accent, no particular region. The kind of voice that didn't need to be loud to command attention. Vance blinked. What? How many shooters are engaging your position? We count at least 6, maybe 8, plus whoever's running that drone and whoever's on the mortar, and there's a sniper somewhere we can't locate. Northeast Ridge, 400 meters. He's been there for 20 minutes. Vance stared at her. How do you... Another mortar round, 10 meters out. She glanced up at this drone, her expression never changing. They're walking fire. Next shot will be danger close. You have about 45 seconds. Who are you? She didn't answer. Instead, she unslung the rifle from her back. It was old, some kind of bolt-action hunting rifle that looked like it had been modified by someone who actually knew what they were doing. Not military issue, personal. The stock was worn smooth from use, and the scope looked like it had been salvaged from 3 different weapons. Can you reach that ridge? Vance asked, even though he already knew the answer. 400 meters in this wind, with a rifle like that, against a professional sniper who had home field advantage? Impossible. She settled into position, checking the rifle with quick, efficient movements. Yes. Not arrogance, not confidence, just fact. She looked at the wind, the snow, the angle of the cliff. Her fingers moved to adjust the scope, but she didn't look through it yet. Instead, she closed her eyes for just a moment, like she was listening to something only she could hear. Then her eyes opened. And Vance saw something in them that made his blood run cold. Not hatred, not anger, purpose. Pure, absolute, undeniable purpose. She raised the rifle. The drone was still circling, maybe 80 meters out now, feeding targeting data. She tracked it, breathed once, waited. The wind gusted. She didn't move. Then, in the half second between one gust and the next, in a moment of absolute stillness that Vance wouldn't have believed existed if he hadn't seen it, she fired. The drone exploded, not damaged, not disabled. Completely obliterated, pieces raining down in a scatter pattern that said she'd hit the battery pack dead center. The mortars stopped. The enemy fire went sporadic, and for exactly 3 seconds, the entire battlefield held its breath. Vance stared at her. What the hell are you? She was already working the bolt, chambering another round. Busy. Then she shifted position, angling toward the northeast ridge where the sniper supposedly was. And Vance realized 2 things simultaneously. 1, she was about to try a shot that was tactically insane. 2, she was going to make it. Rains, Vance said quietly. When she fires, I'm going for the comms pack. Ortega was carrying it. That's suicide. You'll be in the open for 3 seconds. That's all I need. Rains looked at the mystery woman, then at Vance, then nodded slowly. You trust her? I don't even know her. That's not what I asked. Vance watched her. She was absolutely still now, rifle steady, breathing controlled. The wind was howling and the temperature was somewhere below zero, and she was about to attempt a shot that would make trained snipers laugh in disbelief. Yeah, he said finally. Yeah, I trust her. The woman's finger moved to the trigger. Somewhere on that distant ridge, a sniper who thought he was untouchable was about to learn otherwise. She fired, and the world changed. Tut. The battlefield didn't explode into chaos. It was worse than that. It went quiet. The kind of quiet that came after someone important died. When all the lesser players suddenly realized the rules had changed and they needed to reassess everything they thought they knew. Vance didn't wait. He broke from cover and sprinted toward Ortega's body. 3 seconds. That's what the woman had bought him. That's all he had. 1. His boots hit snow and slipped, but he kept moving, muscle memory from 1,000 training runs taking over. 2. He reached Ortega, tried not to look at the kid's face, failed, grabbed the comms pack. 3. Bullets started tracking toward him. He dove back toward cover and felt something hot kiss his leg. Not quite a hit, but close enough to singe the fabric of his pants. He slammed back into the rocks and immediately started working the comms gear. Blood pounded in his ears. His hands were shaking. Cold or adrenaline didn't matter. The pack was damaged. Bullet hole through the casing. Probably why they'd lost contact in the first place. But maybe... He pulled out the emergency radio. Older tech, simpler, less likely to be jammed. Any station, this is Talon 6. Static. Then, faint, breaking up, but there. Talon 6. Read you. Broken. Say again. We are under attack. Grid reference Tango Whiskey 7. Taking casualties. Need immediate air support and QRF. Copy. QRF inbound. ETA 40. The signal died. 40 what? 40 minutes? 40 hours? Vance looked at Carter. The kid had maybe 10 minutes left, and that was being generous. Beside him, the woman was already moving. She'd slung her rifle and pulled out a sidearm, a beat-up 1911 that looked even older than her rifle, but just as well maintained. They're repositioning, she said, trying to flank from the south. How do you know? She gave him a look that said the question was stupid. Then she was moving, low and fast, heading toward the southern approach. Rains caught Vance's eye. Who is she? I have no idea. Should we follow her? Vance looked at Carter, at Shepard, at the blood in the snow and the bodies that would be joining them if they stayed pinned down. Yeah, we should. They moved. The next 15 minutes were a blur of controlled chaos. The woman, whoever she was, fought like she'd memorized the terrain in a past life. She knew where the enemy would be before they got there. She knew which rocks provided cover and which ones were death traps. She knew when to shoot and when to stay hidden. It wasn't fair. She was fighting a completely different battle than everyone else, one where she had information they couldn't access and skills they couldn't match. And slowly, impossibly, the tide started to turn. 2 enemy combatants tried to rush their position. She dropped both with headshots so casual it looked like she was bored. A third tried to flank from the east. Rains got him, but only because she'd called out his position before he was visible. The mortars had stopped. The drone was scrap. And the sniper was gone. Vance didn't know if she'd killed him or if he'd retreated, but the suppressing fire from the ridge had stopped completely. They're pulling back, Lou said, disbelief in his voice. They're actually pulling back. It was true. The enemy fire was getting more sporadic, more desperate. They were breaking contact, retreating, running, from 7 men and a ghost. No, 6 men. Ortega was still dead. That number wasn't changing. The woman appeared beside Vance like she'd materialized out of smoke. You need to move, now. Extraction window won't last. You called for extraction? You did. ETA is 38 minutes. Your casualty won't last that long if you stay here. She was right. Carter had gone pale, his breathing shallow. Mendez, can we move him? I can try, Sarge, but Then try. They organized quickly. Rains and Lou took point. Mendez and Vance carried Carter on an improvised stretcher made from their jackets. Shepard limped along behind them, his shoulder crudely bandaged but still bleeding. And the woman, she disappeared. One moment she was there, covering their six. The next moment Vance looked back and she was gone, vanished into the snow and rocks, like she'd never existed at all. "Where'd she go?" Rains asked. "I don't know." They kept moving. Every step felt like it might be their last. The enemy could regroup, the weather could get worse, Carter could die. But somehow, none of those things happened. They made it to the extraction point, a flat area at the valley's edge where helicopters could land, with 6 minutes to spare. Carter was still breathing, barely. Shepard was in shock but mobile, and somewhere behind them the valley watched with patient, ancient hunger. Vance scanned the ridgeline, looking for the woman. Nothing. "Sarge," Lou said quietly. Did we imagine her? We all saw her. I know, but it seemed impossible. Women didn't just appear out of nowhere and single-handedly turn firefights around. They didn't descend sheer cliffs and make impossible shots and disappear like smoke. Except she had. All of it. The sound of rotors echoed through the valley. 2 Blackhawks coming in fast and low. The cavalry had arrived. As the helicopters settled into landing position, Vance took one last look at the valley, at the rocks and snow and all that beautiful, terrible emptiness. Movement. There, on a ridge about 300 meters out. The woman, standing in the open, watching them. The wind whipped her hair around, but she stood perfectly still, like a statue carved from the mountain itself. Vance raised a hand. She didn't respond, just watched. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the landscape like she was part of it, like she'd always been part of it and always would be. "Come on, Sarge!" Rains was yelling over the rotor wash. "We gotta go!" Vance tore his eyes away and ran for the helicopter. They loaded Carter first, then Shepard, then the rest of the unit. As the helicopter lifted off, Vance looked down at the valley one more time. Empty. No sign of the woman. No sign of the enemy. Just snow and stone and silence. "Sergeant Vance?" He turned. A crew chief was looking at him with concern. "Sir, you're bleeding." Vance looked down. His leg. The near miss had been more direct than he'd thought. "I'm fine." "Sir, you need—" "I said I'm fine." He looked back at the valley. Gone now. Disappearing behind them as the helicopter banked towards safety. But something about it stayed with him. Something about that woman. The tattoos on her arms. 17 marks. 17 what? And why had she been there at all? The crew chief was talking to him again, but Vance wasn't listening. He was thinking about the way she'd moved, the way she'd known things she shouldn't have known, the way she'd looked at the valley like it was home, like she belonged there, like she'd never really left. Rain sat down next to him. "Think we'll ever see her again?" "No." "You sound pretty sure about that." "I am. Because people like her didn't exist in the normal world. They existed in places like that valley, places without names, without maps, without rules, places where the dead walked and the living learned to count their own ghosts." Vance closed his eyes. 17 marks. What was she counting? And why did he have the terrible feeling that the number wasn't finished yet? The helicopter flew on, carrying them away from the valley and toward safety. But in his mind, Vance was still there, still watching that woman walk into the snow, still wondering what happened to someone that made them choose the mountains over salvation, still trying to understand why, when she'd looked at him, he'd seen something worse than fear or anger or even hatred. He'd seen acceptance, like she'd already made peace with whatever war she was fighting, like she'd already decided how it would end, and like she didn't need anyone's permission or help to finish it. The thought should have been unsettling. Instead, it was almost comforting, because if nothing else, at least someone out there was still fighting, still counting, still refusing to forget, even if the rest of the world had moved on. Carter died 3 minutes before they reached the field hospital. Mendez held his hand the whole way, talking to him about home and family and all the things they'd do when they got back, even though they both knew Carter couldn't hear him anymore. When the helicopter landed, the medical team pronounced him dead before they even got him off the bird. Vance filed the report sitting in a folding chair with a bandage on his leg and a cup of coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. The debriefing officer, a major with tired eyes and too much paperwork, took notes without comment. "And this woman," the major said, "you're saying she just appeared?" "Yes, sir." "And you didn't get a name, rank, unit designation?" "No, sir." "Did she identify herself as friendly forces?" "She saved our lives, sir. That seems pretty friendly." The major gave him a look. "Sergeant, I need facts, not sass." "A fact, so she showed up, killed a drone with one shot, neutralized a sniper position we couldn't even locate, and bought us enough time to call for extraction. Without her, we'd all be dead." The major wrote something down. Description: female, Asian, mid-20s, 5'4", maybe 5'5". Both arms covered in tattoos. 17 tally marks. Tally marks? "Yes, sir." "Counting what?" "I don't know, sir." More writing. Then the major looked up. "We'll investigate. In the meantime, you and your unit are on stand-down pending psychological evaluation." "Sir, we don't need—" "That's an order, Sergeant." Vance knew better than to argue. He left the tent and found Rains and Lou sitting on empty supply crates, sharing a cigarette even though neither of them smoked. "They believe us?" Lou asked. "Doesn't matter." "What do you mean, it doesn't matter?" Vance sat down. His leg ached. His head ached. Everything ached. "I mean, she's gone. We're here. Carter and Ortega are dead. That's the only part that matters." They sat in silence for a while. Then Rains said, "Think she's okay? Out there?" Vance thought about the way she'd stood on that ridge, absolutely still while the wind tried to tear her apart. "Yeah," he said. "I think she's exactly where she wants to be." "That's not what I asked." "I know." More silence. Somewhere across the compound, someone was playing music. Something old and sad about going home. Vance closed his eyes and saw her again. Walking into the snow. Disappearing. 17 marks. Who were they? And what would she do when she finished counting? He didn't know. But somewhere deep in his gut, in the place where instinct lived, he knew this wasn't over. The valley had let them go. But it hadn't let her go. And one day, maybe tomorrow, maybe next year, someone else would stumble into that frozen nightmare and find themselves staring at a woman with tattooed arms and dead eyes and a purpose that transcended survival. And maybe they'd live. Or maybe they'd just become number 18. The music played on, the sun set, and in a valley with no name, a woman with 17 marks walked into the storm and disappeared. No footprints, no trace, only the mountains remained, watching, waiting, remembering. 3 weeks later, Vance got the call. Not through official channels, not from command, just a number he didn't recognize that appeared on his personal phone. At 2 in the morning, while he was lying awake in his apartment, staring at the ceiling and not sleeping like he hadn't really slept since the valley. He almost didn't answer. "Vance?" Static. Then a voice, distorted, run through some kind of filter that made it sound mechanical. "The woman you met. We need to talk about her." Vance sat up. "Who is this?" "Someone who's been looking for her a lot longer than you have." "I'm not looking for anyone." "Then why haven't you filed a complete report?" Vance's hand tightened on the phone. The official debriefing had been sanitized. He'd mentioned a civilian asset, female, provided tactical support. That was it. He'd left out the cliff descent, the impossible shots, the way she'd moved like the terrain was feeding her information. He'd left out the tattoos. "I filed everything relevant." "You left out the marks on her arms." Silence. Vance's pulse kicked up a notch. "Meet me," the voice said. "Tomorrow, 800. There's a diner called Mabel's on Route 40, 20 miles outside base. Come alone." "And if I don't?" "Then 6 more soldiers die in that valley next month. And the month after that, and the month after that. Because you didn't ask the right questions when you had the chance." The line went dead. Vance sat there in the dark, phone still pressed to his ear, listening to silence. Then he got up and started getting dressed. The diner was exactly the kind of place spies met in movies, off the highway, half empty, staffed by a waitress who'd seen everything and cared about nothing. Vance arrived 15 minutes early, took a booth in the back, and ordered coffee he didn't drink. At 08:03, a woman walked in. Not the woman from the valley, someone else. Older, maybe 40, maybe 50, hard to tell. Dark suit. Government written all over her in a way that made civilians nervous and soldiers suspicious. She had the kind of face that was professionally unmemorable, the kind you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting her. She slid into the booth across from him without asking. "Sergeant Vance, thanks for coming." Didn't feel like I had a choice. You always have a choice. You just don't always like the options. She signaled the waitress. "Coffee? Black?" Vance waited. He'd been interrogated by professionals before. The key was to stay quiet and let them fill the silence. She smiled like she knew exactly what he was doing. "I'm not here to interrogate you. I'm here to warn you." "About what?" "About digging into something you don't understand." "I'm not digging into anything." "You've run database searches for unidentified female operatives in that region. You've requested historical incident reports for grid reference Tango Whiskey 7. You've filed 3 separate FOIA requests for classified mission data." Vance felt his jaw tighten. He had done those things, quietly, on his own time, using personal accounts. "How do you—" "Because we've been monitoring anyone who shows interest in that valley for the last 8 years. 8 years. The waitress brought coffee. The woman waited until she left before continuing. "The woman you met has 17 marks on her arms. Do you know what they represent? People she killed? Missions she survived." Vance blinked. "What's the difference?" "The people on those missions didn't survive. She did. All 17 times." The coffee cup was warm against Vance's palms. Outside, traffic hummed past on the highway. Inside, the world had gone very still. "Who is she?" "Someone we lost. Someone we're trying to find. Someone you need to forget about." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." The woman pulled a folder from her briefcase. Manila, unmarked. She slid it across the table. "Take a look." Vance opened it. Photographs. Incident reports. Redacted documents with more black ink than text. The first photo showed a military unit. 12 soldiers, standard deployment photo. Everyone smiling, everyone young. 18 months ago, the woman said. Special operations team. Sent into that valley on a classified reconnaissance mission. They were supposed to be in and out in 72 hours. Vance turned the page. The next photo showed body bags. 11 of them. "Only one came back alive," the woman said. A specialist named Kara Chen. 23 years old. Sniper qualification. Fluent in 3 languages. Psych evals clean. No red flags. She paused. "She came back different." "Different how?" "She wouldn't talk about what happened. Wouldn't eat. Barely slept. When she did sleep, the night staff said they could hear her counting, same numbers, over and over, 1 through 11. Vance's throat felt dry. The other members of her team. We tried to debrief her. Standard protocol. She sat in that room for 6 hours and didn't say a word, just stared at the wall. Then the next morning, she was gone. Gone? Walked off base. Disappeared. We tracked her for about 2 weeks. She was heading back toward the valley. Then the trail went cold. That was 16 months ago. Vance looked at the photos again. Tried to reconcile the smiling specialist in the unit photo with the woman who'd descended a cliff face like gravity didn't apply to her. Failed. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because 6 months after Chen disappeared, another unit got hit in that valley. 8 soldiers, 7 dead, 1 survivor, a corporal named Marcus Webb." She slid another photo across. "Different unit, same ending, body bags. Webb reported the same thing you did. A woman appeared, helped them, saved his life, then vanished." "Chen?" "We think so. Webb's description matched. Female, Asian, mid-20s, covered in tattoos." "How many marks?" 12. Vance did the math. 11 team members dead in her first mission. 12 marks 6 months later. She's counting the people she couldn't save. That's our theory. Another photo. Another unit, another pile of body bags. 4 months after that, another team got ambushed. 6 soldiers, 5 dead. And the survivor saw her too. With 14 marks. Vance felt something cold settle in his stomach. He flipped through the rest of the folder. More photos, more reports, more death. Every few months, another unit got hit. Every time, one person survived. Every time they reported the same thing. A woman with tattooed arms. A woman who fought like she owned the terrain. A woman who saved just enough people to keep the death count from reaching 0. 17 marks, Vance said quietly. How many is she trying to reach? We don't know. But every time she fails to save everyone, she adds another mark. Fails? Vance looked up. She's saving people. She's keeping score, the woman corrected. And sooner or later, the score is going to matter. What does that mean? Instead of answering, she pulled out one more document. This one wasn't redacted. It was a medical file. Kara Chen, psych evaluation, post-mission. Vance scanned it. Standard questions, trauma assessment, risk evaluation. Then he saw the note at the bottom, handwritten by the evaluating psychiatrist. Patient exhibits signs of survivor's guilt complicated by delusional belief system. States repeatedly that she should have known. When pressed, unable to articulate what she should have known or how this knowledge would have changed outcome. Demonstrates concerning fixation on numerical patterns and self-imposed penance ritual. Recommend immediate psychiatric hold and intervention. Recommendation denied by patient's CO. Patient cleared for limited duty pending follow-up evaluation. Follow-up evaluation never happened because Chen had disappeared 2 days later. She thinks it's her fault, Vance said. All of it. She thinks she missed something. Some pattern. Some warning sign that could have prevented her entire team from getting killed. Did she? The woman's expression didn't change. Intelligence suggests the ambush was planned weeks in advance. There was nothing Chen or anyone else could have done differently. But she doesn't believe that. No, she doesn't. Vance closed the folder. Why are you showing me this? Because you're asking questions. And when people ask questions about that valley, bad things happen. Threats? Facts. 3 analysts who tried to investigate the pattern of ambushes in that region. 2 transferred out after receiving threats. 1 committed suicide. Suicide? Walked into traffic. Left a note saying he couldn't stop seeing the numbers. The diner felt too small suddenly, too quiet. Who's behind the ambushes? That's classified. People are dying. People die in war zones every day. This is different. Yes, the woman said. It is, which is why you need to stop asking questions. Vance laughed. It came out bitter. You called me here to tell me to back off? I called you here to tell you the truth. Kara Chen is gone. Whoever she was before, she's not that person anymore. She's something else. Something that lives in that valley and counts the dead and saves just enough people to keep adding to her collection. Her collection? The marks, the survivors, whatever you want to call them. The woman leaned forward. You want to know what I think? I think she's trying to balance the scales. 11 people died on her watch, so she's going to save 11 people, 12, 17, however many it takes until she feels like the universe is even. And then what? The woman sat back. I don't know. Maybe she stops. Maybe she disappears for good. Maybe she puts a bullet in her own head because she's finally squared the debt. Vance felt sick. Or maybe, the woman continued, she keeps going, keeps adding marks, keeps saving people until there's no one left to save and she's just a ghost in the mountains counting forever. Outside, a truck rolled past. Someone laughed. The waitress dropped silverware. Normal life, continuing like the world wasn't full of broken people trying to fix unfixable things. What do you want from me? Vance asked. Stop looking for her. Stop asking questions. And if you ever see her again... The woman stood. Don't follow her. She dropped a 20 on the table and walked out. Vance sat there for a long time, staring at the folder. 17 marks. 17 people who'd lived because Kara Chen had decided their life was worth more than her own. He thought about Carter, bleeding out in the snow. About Ortega, dead before he hit the ground. About all the other names and faces in that folder, all the soldiers who'd gone into that valley and never come back. And he thought about Chen walking through the snow, counting numbers that would never add up right. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Forget what you learned. Forget what you saw. The valley doesn't give people back." Vance deleted the message. Then he opened his laptop and started searching again. The problem with telling someone to stop asking questions was that it only worked if they were asking the wrong questions to begin with. Vance wasn't. He spent the next week pulling everything he could find about the valley. Not through official channels, those were clearly monitored. Instead, he went analog. Old newspaper archives, local historical societies, regional maps from before the area got classified. The valley had a name once, Teller's Gap, named after a prospector who'd disappeared there in 1847. According to local legend, he'd found gold. According to common sense, he'd found a crevasse and died at the bottom of it. But the name stuck. And over the years, other names got added. Harrison's Folly, Dead Man's Pass, the Cold Walk, all unofficial, all local, all pointing to the same thing. People went into that valley and didn't come out. Not just soldiers, hikers, hunters, surveyors, scientists. The death rate was statistically impossible. The terrain was dangerous, sure, but not that dangerous. Something else was going on. Vance found a forum post from 3 years ago, someone asking about unusual military activity in the region. The responses were mostly jokes. Black ops, aliens, secret weapons testing. Then, buried in the replies, one that made him stop scrolling. My brother was stationed there. He never talked about what he saw, but he woke up screaming every night until he didn't wake up at all. They said it was his heart. They were wrong. Vance clicked the username. Profile was deleted. He kept digging. Another forum, another post. If you're reading this, stay away from grid reference TW7. I lost my entire unit there. I don't know how I survived. I don't know why. But whatever's in that valley, it's not random. It's choosing. Choosing. That word stuck with him. Because Chen hadn't just survived. She'd survived 17 separate incidents. The odds of that happening by chance were astronomical. Unless it wasn't chance. Unless something or someone was making sure she survived. His phone rang. Rains. "Sarge, you busy?" "What's up?" "Got a weird call from intelligence. They're asking about our deployment, specifically about the civilian asset we reported." Vance's hand tightened on the phone. "What did you tell them?" "Nothing they didn't already know, but here's the thing. They asked if I'd seen her again." "Have you?" "No, but why would they think I had?" "Good question." "I don't know. Thanks for the heads up." He hung up and pulled up a map of the valley, marked every incident he could verify. 11 confirmed ambushes over 18 months, each one following a similar pattern. Small unit, remote location, overwhelming force, and Chen showing up just in time to save 1 or 2 people. Not random, not coincidence. She wasn't just happening to be there, she was waiting. But for what? Vance zoomed in on the map. The ambush sites formed a rough circle around a central point deep in the valley. A point that didn't show on any official maps but appeared on older surveys as Marker Ridge. He pulled up satellite imagery. The ridge was there, barren, rocky, nothing special, except for the small structure at its peak, too regular to be natural, too isolated to be military. He enhanced the image until pixels broke apart into meaningless noise. But he'd seen enough. Someone had built something up there, and he was willing to bet Kara Chen knew what it was. His phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. "You were warned," Vance typed back. "Who is this?" No response. He waited 5 minutes. 10. Nothing. Then his laptop screen flickered. A window opened. Black background. Green text scrolling. "You're making a mistake." Vance's hands hovered over the keyboard. Someone had remote access to his computer. "Who are you?" he typed. "Someone trying to keep you alive." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm the one who's been making sure Kara Chen only counts to 17. Vance stared at the screen. "What does that mean?" "It means every time she saves someone, she gets 1 step closer to going back to that ridge. And if she makes it there, a lot of people die." "What's at the ridge?" The typing stopped. 30 seconds passed. Then, the people who killed her team. Vance felt his pulse spike. I thought it was an ambush, and it was. Planned by someone who knew exactly where they'd be, exactly when, exactly how many. Someone who had access to classified mission parameters. An inside job. Who? That's what Chen's been trying to figure out for 18 months, and she's getting close. How do you know? Because I'm the one who gave her the first clue. The screen went dark. Vance tried to restart it. Nothing. The computer was completely dead. He sat back, mind racing. Someone had leaked classified mission data. Someone had set up Chen's team to die. And someone had been helping Chen hunt them down while making sure she stayed in the valley. Why? His phone rang. Unknown number, different from before. He answered without speaking. Sergeant Vance? Not the filtered voice from the diner. This one was clear, young, familiar. Chen? A pause. Wind noise, cold wind. You need to stop looking. Are you okay? I'm exactly where I need to be. The woman at the diner said, I know what she said. She's wrong. About what? I'm not trying to balance scales. I'm trying to finish what my team started. Which is what? Another pause, longer this time. We were sent to verify intelligence. Someone reported unusual activity at that ridge, weapons, communications equipment, evidence of a permanent enemy presence. And we found it. All of it. And we found something else. What? Proof that someone in our chain of command was facilitating the operation. Someone high up. Someone who needed us dead to keep the secret. Vance's blood ran cold. You're going after them. I'm going to finish the mission. Chen, you can't. Every person I save is one more witness, one more piece of evidence, one more data point proving what happened. 17 isn't enough? 17 is a start. The line crackled. Her voice got fainter. Don't come looking for me, Sergeant. You survived once. You won't survive twice. Chen, and if anyone asks, you never heard from me. The call ended. Vance sat in the dark, staring at his dead computer and his silent phone and the folder full of body bags. 17 marks. 17 survivors. 17 pieces of a puzzle that was bigger and darker than he'd realized. He thought about Carter, about Ortega, about all the other soldiers who'd died in that valley, while Kara Chen counted and calculated and moved one step closer to whatever truth she was hunting. The smart move was to walk away. The right move was to report everything. Vance did neither. Instead, he pulled out a notebook and started writing down everything he knew. Because somewhere in that valley, a woman with tattooed arms was fighting a war nobody else knew about. And if she failed, the body count wouldn't stop at 17. Outside, the sun came up. Inside, Vance kept writing. The valley had taken enough from him. It wasn't getting the rest. 2 days later, Vance got orders to return to the valley. Not a request. Not a suggestion. Orders. Signed by a colonel he'd never heard of. Authorized by a command structure that didn't show up in any org chart he could find. The briefing was short. Intel suggests renewed hostile activity in Grid Reference Tango Whiskey 7. Your unit has operational experience in the terrain. You'll lead a reconnaissance element. 6 men, 72 hours, in and out. Vance looked at the colonel across the desk. Mid-50s, pressed uniform, eyes that had seen combat but not recently. Sir, with respect, that valley is a kill box. We lost 2 men last time and only survived because of excellent tactical decision-making under pressure. It's in your report. Sir, there were other factors. Your orders are clear, Sergeant. You deploy at 0600 tomorrow. Dismissed. Vance didn't move. Who authorized this mission? The colonel's expression didn't change. That's above your clearance. And if I refuse? Then you'll be court-martialed for disobeying a direct order during wartime. Your choice. It wasn't a choice, it was a setup. Vance stood, saluted, walked out. In the hallway, he pulled out his phone. No signal. He tried anyway, typing a message to the unknown number that had contacted him. They're sending me back. No response. He made it halfway to his quarters before someone grabbed his arm and pulled him into an empty office. Rains. Tell me you're not actually going back there. Vance shook him off. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. This smells wrong. You know it smells wrong. I know. Then why? Because if I don't go, they'll send someone else. And that someone else won't know what they're walking into. Rains stared at him. You think it's another ambush? I think someone wants me in that valley. The question is why? Maybe they want you dead. Maybe. Or maybe they want me to find something. Or someone. Vance didn't answer. Rains ran a hand through his hair. Liu and I already volunteered. Mendez said he's in too. This isn't your fight. Carter was our friend. Ortega too. That makes it our fight. Vance wanted to argue. Wanted to tell them to stay behind, stay safe, stay alive. But he'd need people he could trust. And trust was in short supply. We leave at 0600, he said. Get some rest. Rest? Rains laughed without humor. Sure, I'll get right on that. He left. Vance stood in the empty office, staring at maps that didn't show the whole truth and orders that didn't make sense. Someone was moving pieces on a board he couldn't see, and he was one of the pieces. The insertion went smooth, too smooth. 2 helicopters, 6 soldiers, dropped at the valley's edge just after dawn. The pilots looked nervous, kept the rotors hot, didn't kill the engines, took off the second everyone was clear, like they knew something. The valley looked the same, snow, rock, wind that cut through gear like it wasn't there, but it felt different. Vance couldn't explain it. Some sixth sense developed through too many combat deployments, maybe. Or maybe just pattern recognition screaming that the similarities were surface level and underneath, everything had changed. Spread out, he ordered. Standard recon formation. Eyes open, mouths shut. They moved into the valley. Liu took point. Rains and Mendez covered flanks. 3 privates Vance barely knew, Torres, Kim, Hassan, filled out the element. All of them looked too young. All of them probably were. An hour in, they found the first body. Not American. The uniform was wrong. Russian, maybe, or somewhere in that region. Hard to tell because of decomposition and scavenger damage. Fresh, though. Maybe 2 weeks dead. Someone else has been here, Liu said quietly. Vance knelt next to the body, checked for identification, found nothing except a radio that had been deliberately destroyed and a sidearm with no ammunition. He ran out of bullets, Mendez observed, or someone took them. They kept moving. The second body was half a mile deeper. Same story. Foreign uniform. No ID. Destroyed equipment. The third and fourth were together, frozen in positions that suggested they'd died defending something. What the hell happened here? Torres asked. Vance didn't answer because he didn't know, but he was starting to suspect. By midday, they'd counted 11 bodies, all foreign military, all dead within the last month, all showing signs of defensive positioning and controlled retreat. This was a firefight, Rains said. Sustained, organized. Against who? That's the question. Vance pulled out his map. The bodies formed a trail leading deeper into the valley, toward Marker Ridge, toward the place Kara Chen had mentioned. We keep moving, he said. Sarge, maybe we should call this in. With what? Radios are jammed, same as last time. Rains checked his radio. Static. He tried different frequencies, more static. Someone's blocking us. Someone's always blocking us. They pushed forward. The wind picked up. Temperature dropped. The valley narrowed into a choke point where the cliffs pressed in from both sides, creating a natural funnel. Perfect ambush terrain. Vance called a halt. Hassan, check those rocks. Kim, watch our 6. Everyone else, weapons ready. Hassan moved toward a boulder formation. Got 3 steps. The shot took him in the chest. Not a kill shot. His body armor caught it. But the impact knocked him flat, and the second shot, coming half a second later, would have taken his head off if Torres hadn't tackled him behind cover. Contact! Vance dove behind a rock. Northeast, elevated position. Gunfire erupted from multiple directions. Professional, coordinated, designed to pin them in the kill zone, just like last time. Except this time, they'd walked right into it. Return fire! Vance brought his rifle up, acquired targets. 2 shooters on the left ridge, 3 on the right, more behind them, using the terrain for cover. This wasn't an ambush. This was an execution. We need to move, Rains shouted over the gunfire. Where? They've got every angle covered. Then we make an angle. Rains pulled a grenade, threw it toward the left ridge. The explosion bought them 5 seconds of confusion. 5 seconds was enough. Go! 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 They ran. Bullets chased them. Hassan was limping, Torres half carrying him. Kim laid down suppressing fire that wouldn't suppress anything but bought psychological space. They made it maybe 50 meters before the RPG hit. Not a direct hit. That would have killed everyone. But close enough. The explosion lifted Vance off his feet and slammed him into frozen ground that felt like concrete. His ears rang. His vision blurred. Blood ran from somewhere. He pushed himself up. Kim wasn't moving. Direct shrapnel strike. Dead or dying. Hassan was screaming, clutching his leg where something had torn through muscle. And Torres was returning fire. Calm. Controlled. Professional. Torres, fall back! Can't, Sarge. They're flanking. Vance looked. Torres was right. Enemy combatants were moving to encircle them, using the same hammer and anvil tactics that had nearly killed them last time. They were going to die here. All of them. Then Vance saw her. Same ridge as before, same impossible approach. Same woman descending like physics was a polite suggestion she'd chosen to ignore. Kara Chen. She hit the ground, rifle already up, and fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 3 shooters dropped. The enemy fire adjusted, tracking toward her new position, and she was already moving, flowing across the terrain like water, like she'd memorized every rock and gap and angle. She fired again. 2 more down. Who the hell is that? Torres asked. Guardian Angel, Rains muttered. Or Death herself. Haven't decided which. Chen reached their position in seconds. Up close, Vance could see she'd changed. Thinner. Harder. Eyes that had seen too much and stopped caring. The tattoos on her arms had increased. 23 marks now. You shouldn't be here, she said flatly. Wasn't my choice. Doesn't matter. You need to leave. Now. Can't. They've got us pinned. She looked at the enemy positions, calculating. 6 shooters remaining, 1 with optics, 2 with automatic weapons. They're covering a fallback position. Fallback to where? The ridge. She met his eyes. They're protecting something. What? The proof I've been looking for. Gunfire intensified. Chen didn't flinch. Can you get us out of here? Vance asked. Depends. Can your men shoot? Yes. Then maybe. She pulled a marker from her pocket, held out her left arm, drew another tally mark. 24. What are you doing? Vance asked. Counting. She finished the mark. You're number 24. Try not to make me regret it. Then she was moving again, calling out positions and targets in a voice that expected to be obeyed. Suppressing fire, left ridge, 3 o'clock, now. Rains and Mendez opened up. Sergeant, take Hassan and move to those rocks. 30 meters, straight line. Vance grabbed Hassan and ran. Private, grenade the choke point. 5 seconds. Torres threw. The explosion echoed. Chen used the chaos. She moved like she was part of the valley itself, appearing and disappearing, each appearance marked by a shot, and each shot marked by an enemy combatant who stopped shooting back. It wasn't human. It was something beyond human, something that happened when a person stopped caring about survival and started caring only about mission completion. She'd become a weapon. Perfect. Precise. Merciless. In 3 minutes, the enemy fire stopped. In 5 minutes, the valley was quiet. Chen stood in the open, rifle lowered, breathing steady. 24 marks. 24 saves. How many more until she felt even? Everyone alive? Vance called out. Responses came back. Hassan wounded but mobile. Kim dead. Everyone else intact. 2 casualties out of 6. Better than last time. Worse than it should have been. Chen walked over to one of the bodies, searched it, found a radio. She keyed it. Spoke in a language Vance didn't recognize. A response came back. Also foreign. Also angry. She smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. They know we're here, she said. Who? The people who killed my team. The people who've been using this valley as a logistics hub for 18 months. The people who... A new voice crackled over the radio. American accent. Male. Calm. Specialist Chen. It's been a while. Chen's expression went blank. Colonel Marks. Vance felt his blood run cold. Colonel Marks. The officer who'd sent him here. You've been busy, Marks continued. 24 saves. Impressive. Though I notice you keep letting some die. Selective mercy? Or just bad marksmanship? I'm coming for you. I know. That's why I sent Sergeant Vance. Bait, really. Though I'll admit I didn't expect you to take it. Chen looked at Vance. Her expression said sorry without words. You used me, Vance said. I used everyone, Marks replied through the radio. That's what command does. We make hard choices so people like you don't have to. Hard choices? Chen's voice went flat. You sold classified mission data to hostile forces. You got my entire team killed. You've been facilitating enemy operations for over a year. I've been maintaining strategic balance. There's a difference. Not to the people who died. Silence on the radio. Then, come to the ridge, Chen. Let's finish this conversation face to face. I'm coming. I know. And I'll be waiting. With friends. The radio went dead. Chen dropped it. Looked at Vance. Leave. Now. Take your men and get out of this valley. No. That wasn't a request. And I wasn't asking for permission. Vance stood. You're going after Marks. Alone. Against however many people he's got waiting. That's suicide. Maybe. Definitely. Then I'll die with 24 marks instead of the 11 I started with. Still better than I deserve. She turned to go. Vance grabbed her arm. Listen to me. She moved. Fast. Disarming fast. 1 second Vance was holding her arm. The next second he was on the ground with her boot on his chest and her sidearm pointed at his face. Don't, she said quietly. I've saved you twice. Don't make me regret it by forcing me to kill you. Then take us with you. Why? Because Mark sent us here to die. Because your team deserved better. Because 24 saves isn't enough if you throw your life away afterward. She didn't move. The gun stayed pointed at his face. You don't understand what you're asking. Probably not, but I'm asking anyway. Torres stepped forward. We're going with you. All of us. No, you're not. With respect, ma'am, Raines added. We kind of are. You save us, we save you. That's how this works. Mendez nodded. Even Hassan, leaning against a rock and bleeding, grunted agreement. Chen looked at them. At Vance. At the valley around them. Then she lowered the gun. You'll die. Probably, Vance agreed, but we'll die doing something that matters. It won't bring your friends back. No, but it'll make sure they didn't die for nothing. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Then she holstered her weapon. Fine, but when I give an order, you follow it. No questions, no hesitation. Understand? Yes, ma'am. I'm not a ma'am. I'm barely even a soldier anymore. She checked her rifle. And if you slow me down, I will leave you behind. Understood. She started walking toward the ridge. The others fell in behind her. Vance caught up. What's the plan? Marks has maybe 20 hostiles positioned around the ridge. Professional contractors, most likely. They'll have high ground, superior numbers, and prepared positions. So we're outnumbered, outgunned, and walking into a trap. Yes? Great. Love it. What's the actual plan? Chen stopped. Looked at him. I kill everyone between me and Marks. Then I kill Marks. Then I destroy whatever evidence he's been hiding up there. Then, if I'm still alive, I walk away. That's not a plan. That's barely even a concept. It's worked 24 times. And how many of those times did you have 5 other people to worry about? She didn't answer. Because the answer was 0. Listen, Vance said. You've been fighting alone for 18 months. I get it. I understand why. But you're not alone anymore. Let us help. You can't help. Try us. Chen studied him. Then she pulled out a small notebook, opened it. Inside were sketches. Detailed tactical diagrams of the ridge, the approach routes, the defensive positions. You've been planning this, Vance said. For 16 months. Every time I save someone, I learn a little more. Every survivor I create is another data point. Another piece of evidence that Marks can't suppress. Evidence of what? That the ambushes aren't random, that someone high up is coordinating them, that the entire Valley operation is designed to eliminate witnesses while maintaining plausible deniability. She flipped pages. More diagrams, kill zones, firing lanes, overlapping fields of fire. Marks knows I'm coming. He's known since I saved the first survivor. Every person I rescue is another threat to his operation, so he keeps sending more units, keeps setting more traps, trying to force me to either stop saving people or get myself killed. But you keep coming back. I keep coming back. Because you're counting. Because I remember, say. She closed the notebook. 11 people died because I wasn't good enough. Wasn't fast enough. Didn't see the warning signs. Every person I save after that is me trying to prove I'm worth the air I'm breathing. Vance understood then. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about justice. It was about penance. And penance didn't end until the debt was paid. How many more? He asked quietly. What? How many more saves until you're even? Chen looked at her arms, at the marks covering them like armor. I don't know. Maybe there isn't a number. Maybe I just keep counting until I can't count anymore. That's not sustainable. Nothing about this is sustainable, Sergeant, but it's all I have. She started walking again. Behind them, the valley watched. Ahead, the ridge waited. And somewhere up there, Colonel Marks prepared to finish what he'd started 18 months ago. The climb took 2 hours. Chen led them through routes that shouldn't exist, narrow gaps in the rock, unstable scree slopes, cliff faces that required climbing with no safety gear. The kind of terrain that killed people who weren't absolutely certain of every handhold. She moved like she'd memorized the entire mountain. Twice they had to stop while she scouted ahead. Both times she came back with information that saved their lives. A patrol route here, a sensor array there, tripwires that would have alerted every hostile on the ridge. How do you know all this? Torres asked. I've been here before. When? 18 months ago, right before everyone died. She didn't elaborate. They kept climbing. By the time they reached the ridge's base, the sun was setting. Long shadows stretched across the snow, temperature dropping. Visibility getting worse. Perfect conditions for an assault, terrible conditions for survival. Chen gathered them in a small depression out of sight from the ridge. Final check. Ammunition? They reported. Low across the board, maybe 2 magazines each. Medical supplies? Even lower. Explosives? Torres had 2 grenades. That was it. Chen nodded like she'd expected nothing better. Here's what's going to happen. Marks has 4 defensive positions, north, south, east, west. Each position has approximately 5 combatants, overlapping fields of fire, mutually supporting, standard force protection. She drew in the snow with her finger. The south position is weakest, only 3 combatants confirmed. That's our entry point. We assault with 6 people against 20, Wads? Mendez asked. No, I assault. You provide covering fire and then retreat. Absolutely not, Vance said. That wasn't a suggestion. And I'm not taking it. We go together or we don't go at all. Chen's jaw tightened. You'll die. Maybe. But you'll die for sure if you go alone. At least this way we've got a chance. She stared at him. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. Small, sad. You remind me of someone. Who? My team leader, right before he got shot in the head. The smile disappeared. Fine. We go together. But when I say move, you move. When I say shoot, you shoot. And when I say run, we don't run. Then you die. Then we die. Chen shook her head. But she didn't argue further. She laid out the plan. Simple. Brutal. Almost certainly fatal. They'd split into 2 elements. Chen, Vance, and Torres would hit the south position. Rains, Mendez, and Hassan would provide suppressing fire from cover. Once the south position was cleared, they'd advance to the central structure, the building Chen had been trying to reach for 18 months. After that, it was improvisation and luck. Mostly luck. Questions? Chen asked. Yeah, Torres said. What's in that building? Proof. Communications logs, financial records. Everything needed to prove Marks has been selling intelligence to hostile forces. And if the proof isn't there, then we die for nothing and Marks continues operating. Torres nodded. Just wanted to know what we're dying for. Now you do. Chen checked her rifle one last time. The same old bolt-action weapon she'd been using all along. Beaten, modified, personal. Why do you use that? Vance asked. You could get something better, something modern. This was my team leader's rifle. He died holding it. Least I can do is make sure it keeps working. She stood. Let's go kill a traitor. They moved into position. The assault began at 2300 hours. Chen fired first. Single shot, headshot, one guard down. Then all hell broke loose. The south position erupted with return fire, automatic weapons, disciplined, professional. But Chen had already moved. She flowed through the darkness like smoke, appearing and disappearing, each appearance marked by another shot and another body dropping. Vance and Torres advanced behind her, firing at muzzle flashes, covering angles she couldn't watch. Rains and Mendez poured suppressing fire from their position, keeping the other defensive points from reinforcing. It should have been chaos. It should have been suicide. Instead, it was choreography. Chen called targets. Vance engaged, Torres covered. The south position collapsed in under 2 minutes. 3 bodies, no survivors. Move up, Chen ordered. They advanced. The north position opened fire. Chen dropped flat, rolled, came up shooting. 2 targets down. East position tried to flank. Torres caught them with a grenade that turned the flank into a killing ground. West position held firm. Good cover, good angles. Smart commander. Chen studied them for 5 seconds. Then she did something insane. She stood up, fully exposed, rifle raised. Chen, get down! She fired. The west position commander dropped, through cover, through darkness, through a shot that should have been impossible. The remaining defenders broke, started retreating. Chen pursued. Chen, wait! She wasn't listening. She was hunting. Vance ran after her. Torres followed. They reached the central structure, a concrete bunker built into the ridge itself. Military construction, old but maintained. The door was open. Light spilled out. Chen approached, rifle ready. Marks, she shouted. It's over. Silence. Then, from inside, come in, specialist. Let's talk. Chen glanced at Vance. Stay here. Not a chance. Then stay behind me. She entered. The interior was exactly what Chen had described. Communications equipment, computer terminals, filing cabinets full of documents, and in the center, standing next to a desk covered in paperwork, Colonel Marks. He looked exactly like his file photo. Distinguished, professional, the kind of officer who inspired confidence. He was also holding a detonator. Specialist Chen, he said calmly. Sergeant Vance. Welcome. Chen aimed her rifle at his head. Put it down. This? No, I don't think so. Marks smiled. This building is wired with enough explosives to erase everything. All the evidence, all the proof, everything you've been fighting for. You'll die too. I'm aware, small price to pay for operational security. Vance scanned the room, saw the wires, the charges, enough C4 to turn the entire structure into dust. Why? Chen asked. Why did you do it? Money, power, the usual reasons people betray their country. Marks shrugged. Our enemies pay well for good intelligence, and our command structure is so compartmentalized, so paranoid, that a few missing reports don't raise suspicions. My team raised suspicions. Your team got close. Too close. They found this place, found the evidence. So I made sure they didn't leave the valley. Chen's finger moved to the trigger. I'm going to kill you now. And I'll press this button. We all die. The evidence dies. Everything you've done for 18 months becomes meaningless. At least you'll be dead. True. But is that enough? Is killing me worth letting all those other traitors keep operating? Because I'm not the only one, Chen. There are others. Higher up, better protected, and without this evidence, you'll never touch them. Chen hesitated. That half-second of hesitation was what Marks was waiting for. He pressed the button. Nothing happened. Marks looked at the detonator, pressed it again. Still nothing. Looking for these? Torres stepped out from behind a filing cabinet, holding a handful of detonators and blasting caps. Found them about 30 seconds ago. Figured you might try something stupid. Mark's expression didn't change. Clever, but ultimately pointless. He pulled a sidearm. Chen fired first. The shot took Marks in the shoulder, spun him around. The pistol clattered to the floor. Chen walked forward, rifle still aimed. You're going to stand trial. Answer for what you did. All of it. Marks laughed. Blood ran down his arm. You think this ends with a trial? You think anyone will believe a deserter and a traumatized specialist? They'll believe the evidence. What evidence? Electronic files can be altered. Documents can be forged. Every piece of proof in this room can be dismissed as elaborate fabrication. Not if you confess. I'll never confess. Chen lowered her rifle. Then she pulled out her marker. 24 marks, she said quietly. 24 people I saved. 24 witnesses who can testify that units keep getting ambushed in this valley. 24 data points proving a pattern. She drew another mark. 25 now. Sergeant Vance and his team. More witnesses. More proof. Another mark. 26 if we count you surviving. She looked at marks. You're going to confess. Every detail, every name, every operation, and you're going to do it on record. Why would I do that? Because the alternative is I leave you here, alive, in this valley, and see how long you last. Marks's expression finally changed. Fear. Real fear. Because he knew what lived in this valley, what hunted here. You're bluffing. Chen's smile was colder than the wind outside. 24 people would tell you I don't bluff. She pulled out a radio, keyed it. This is Specialist Kara Chen. I'm transmitting on all military frequencies. I have Colonel Robert Marks in custody. He has confessed to selling classified intelligence to hostile forces, facilitating ambushes that resulted in multiple American casualties, and operating a clandestine logistics network in grid reference Tango Whiskey 7. Static. Then a voice. Clear. Official. Specialist Chen, this is Colonel Diaz, Joint Special Operations Command. Confirm your location. Chen looked at Vance. Something in her eyes softened. Grid reference Tango Whiskey 7, Marker Ridge. I have evidence. I have witnesses. And I have a traitor in custody. Hold position. QRF inbound. ETA, 20 minutes. The radio went quiet. Chen set it down. Then she walked outside. Vance found her standing at the ridge's edge, looking out at the valley. 26 marks on her arms. It's over, he said. This part is. What does that mean? She didn't answer for a long time. Then, Mark said there are others. He wasn't lying. That's not your fight anymore. Maybe not. But someone has to count. Someone has to remember. She turned to face him. Thank you for not letting me die alone. Thank you for saving us. Twice. 26 times now. Who's counting? She held up her arms. I am. Helicopters appeared on the horizon, coming fast. The cavalry, finally. Chen watched them approach. What will you do? Vance asked. After this? I don't know. Face court-martial, probably. Desertion? Unauthorized operations, long list. You saved lives. I also abandoned my post. To finish your mission. To count my failures. The helicopters got closer. Chen closed her eyes. 26 marks. Still not enough to balance 11 losses. Still not enough to make it right. It'll never be enough, Vance said quietly, because the people who died don't need balancing. They just need to be remembered. She opened her eyes. I remember every name, every face, every last word. I know. Will it ever stop hurting? No. The first helicopter landed. Soldiers poured out, medics, command personnel, someone important. Chen stood still, watching them come. Vance stayed beside her. Whatever happens next, he said, you didn't fight alone. Remember that. She nodded. Then she raised her hands as the soldiers surrounded them, as official custody began, as the machinery of military justice started grinding. But before they took her away, she looked at Vance one last time. The 26th mark, she said. That one's different. How? Because this time, I wasn't counting a failure. She smiled. Small. Real. This time, I was counting a choice. Then they led her away. And the valley, finally, went quiet. The debriefing room was cold. Not physically. The temperature was fine. Fluorescent lights humming overhead, government-issue chairs arranged around a government-issue table. But the atmosphere had a chill that went bone deep. Kara Chen sat on one side, hands cuffed in front of her even though she hadn't resisted. Vance sat 3 chairs down, uncuffed, but feeling just as confined. Across from them, a panel of officers, 2 colonels, a brigadier general, A woman in civilian clothes who hadn't introduced herself but radiated federal authority. They'd been sitting for 6 hours. 6 hours of questions, accusations, demands for clarification that felt more like traps. The general, Reeves, according to his nameplate, leaned forward. "Let me see if I understand this correctly, Specialist Chen. You deserted your post 18 months ago. You've been operating independently in a classified operations area. You've engaged in unauthorized combat actions resulting in," he checked his notes, "47 confirmed enemy casualties. And you're claiming this was all in service of completing your original mission?" "Yes, sir. A mission that ended the moment your team was wiped out. The mission was to gather intelligence on enemy operations in grid reference Tango Whiskey 7. I gathered it. By going rogue. By staying alive long enough to finish what my team started." Reeves sat back. "And Sergeant Vance, you encountered Specialist Chen in the field. She saved your unit, yet you didn't report her presence through proper channels." Vance kept his voice level. "Sir, I filed a report mentioning civilian assistance. At the time, I had no knowledge of Specialist Chen's identity or status. But you learned both subsequently and still didn't report it. I was ordered back into the valley before I could file an updated report. By Colonel Marks, who is currently in custody facing charges of treason." "Yes, sir." "How convenient." The woman in civilian clothes spoke for the first time. Her voice was quiet, controlled, dangerous. "Sergeant, did you have any contact with Specialist Chen between your first encounter and your second deployment?" Vance hesitated. That hesitation told her everything. "I see. And did she provide you with any intelligence regarding the operation at Marker Ridge?" "She warned me that the valley was dangerous." "Anything else?" Another hesitation. Chen spoke up. "He didn't know anything. I made contact. I gave him minimal information. He acted on standing orders." Orders from a traitor. Orders he believed were legitimate. Sergeant Vance and his unit are not complicit in any of this. "That's not for you to determine, Specialist." Chen's jaw tightened, but she stayed quiet. One of the colonels, Matthews, opened a folder. "Let's talk about these." He pulled out photographs, surveillance images. Chen in various locations around the valley, different times, different positions. "We've had assets tracking you for 8 months, Matthews said, trying to figure out what you were doing, whether you defected, whether you were working with the enemy. I was working against them. By yourself. Without authorization. Without oversight. Because the oversight was compromised. You didn't know that at the time. I knew my team was dead and someone had sold us out. That was enough." Matthews spread the photos across the table. "You killed 47 people, 17 ambushes. You intervened in every single one. I saved 26 soldiers. You also failed to save 19 others." The number hit Chen like a physical blow. Vance saw it in the way her shoulders tensed, the way her eyes went flat. "I'm aware," she said quietly. "Are you?" "Because from where I'm sitting, this looks less like completing a mission and more like a traumatized soldier playing vigilante." "Colonel," Vance started, "you're not part of this conversation, Sergeant." "Sir, with respect, I am. Specialist Chen saved my life and the lives of my men. Without her intervention, we'd all be dead. Because you were sent into a trap by a compromised officer. That doesn't make her actions legitimate. It makes them necessary." Reeves held up a hand. "Enough. This isn't getting us anywhere." He turned to Chen. "Specialist, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I want a direct answer. Did you at any point consider yourself still operating under military authority?" Chen met his eyes. "Every second of every day, sir." "Even while you were technically AWOL?" "I never went AWOL. I was pursuing mission objectives. For 18 months. The mission wasn't finished. Your team was dead. The mission was over. My team died trying to expose enemy operations. I finished what they couldn't." Reeves studied her. "You added those marks after each intervention, 26 of them. What do they represent to you?" Chen looked at her arms. The tattoos were visible now. She'd removed her jacket hours ago when the room got too warm. "They're reminders," she said. "Of what?" "That I'm still here, and they're not." "Your team?" "Everyone. My team." The soldiers I couldn't save, the ones I could, all of it. That sounds like guilt, Specialist. It is guilt, sir. 11 people died under my watch. I carry that. By saving others? By trying to. The civilian woman leaned forward. Specialist Chen, do you believe you were responsible for your team's deaths? I was the only one who survived. That makes me responsible. That's not what I asked. Chen was quiet for a long moment. I was second sniper, team security. Part of my job was identifying threats before they became critical. I didn't see the ambush coming, didn't recognize the warning signs. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. What warning signs? Radio interference, local pattern of life changes, increased enemy movement in sectors we'd classified as low threat. All of it was there. I just didn't put it together fast enough. Because you're not an intelligence analyst, you're a sniper. I'm a soldier, and soldiers are supposed to keep each other alive. You can't save everyone. No, but I can try. The woman sat back, made a note. Reeves shuffled papers. Let's talk about Colonel Marks. When did you first suspect he was compromised? 3 months after my team was killed. I'd been tracking enemy movements, trying to understand the pattern. The ambushes were too precise, too well timed. Someone was feeding them intelligence. And you concluded it was Marks? Not immediately. I started with the mission itself. Who had access to our deployment orders? Who knew our route? Who had the authority to redirect QRF when we called for help? And that led you to Marks? That led me to realize the leak had to be someone with high-level access. Marks was one of 5 possibles. The others? Chen rattled off 4 names, 2 colonels, a general, a civilian contractor. Reeves and Matthews exchanged looks. You investigated all of them? Matthews asked, as much as I could without tipping them off. How? I saved soldiers from units they'd deployed, tracked which deployments got ambushed and which didn't, looked for patterns in mission assignments, intelligence briefings, operational security breaches. That's intelligence work. That's survival work. I needed to know who to trust. And you determined you couldn't trust anyone? I determined I could only trust the people I personally saved because they owed me their lives. That created a bond that was harder to compromise. Vance spoke up. She's not wrong, sir. When someone saves your life, you remember it. You listen to them, trust them. You're biased, Sergeant. Yes, sir. But I'm also alive, so is most of my unit. That counts for something. Reeves made another note. The civilian woman pulled out a different folder. This one was thicker, more official. Specialist Chen, are you aware that your actions have created a significant legal and operational problem? I'm aware that I did what needed to be done. That's not what I asked. You operated independently for 18 months. You engaged enemy combatants without authorization. You interfered with ongoing operations. You failed to report through proper channels. All of this creates complications. Complications for who? For everyone. The chain of command, operational security, international relations. You've killed foreign nationals on what amounts to sovereign territory. It's a combat zone. It's a gray zone, and you've been operating in it like you're a law unto yourself. Chen's expression hardened. I was finishing my mission. You were counting bodies and calling it justice. I was preventing more soldiers from dying in ambushes orchestrated by a traitor, without authorization, because the authorization was compromised. The woman's voice got quieter, more dangerous. You don't get to make that call, Specialist. You don't get to decide who's compromised. You don't get to operate outside the system because you think the system is broken. Then what should I have done? Filed reports through channels that might have been monitored by the same people trying to kill me? Trusted commanders who might have been on Mark's payroll? Waited for someone else to figure it out while more soldiers died? Yes, and Chen laughed. It was a harsh sound. You've never been in a situation where everyone you trust is dead and everyone in authority might want you dead too. Don't lecture me about proper channels. I'm not lecturing, I'm explaining reality. Your actions, however well-intentioned, have consequences. So do traitors selling out American soldiers. Which consequences matter more? Silence filled the room. Reeves broke it. Specialist Chen, you're facing serious charges. Desertion, unauthorized combat operations, failure to report, Possible counts of manslaughter depending on how we classify the 19 soldiers you failed to save. Chen's face went pale. Sir! However, Reeves held up a hand. You've also potentially exposed a significant security breach, captured a high-value target, and saved 26 American lives. That complicates things. What does that mean? It means we're in uncharted territory. There's no playbook for a soldier who goes rogue to catch a traitor while simultaneously conducting an 18-month rescue operation. Matthews spoke up. There's also the matter of the evidence you collected. Everything in that bunker. If it's legitimate, it is. If it's legitimate, then it could lead to additional arrests. Other compromised officers, a wider network. There is a wider network, Chen said. Marks admitted it. He's not the only one. Can you prove that? The financial records in the bunker show payments from 3 different accounts, all linked to shell corporations, all ultimately controlled by foreign intelligence services. Marks was getting paid, so were at least 2 others. Who? I don't know yet. The records are coded, but someone with proper resources could crack them. The civilian woman made another note. We'll need full access to everything you recovered. You'll have it, on one condition. You're not in a position to make conditions, Specialist. Chen leaned forward despite the handcuffs. The soldiers I saved, the 26, they're witnesses. They can testify to the pattern of ambushes. They can corroborate my timeline, and they can prove that I wasn't operating randomly. I was responding to systematic targeting of American units. What's your point? My point is that their testimony matters. If you're going to charge me, you need to acknowledge what I was actually doing, not some simplified narrative about a traumatized soldier going vigilante. We acknowledge the complexity of the situation. Do you? Because it sounds like you're trying to decide whether to pin medals on me or throw me in Leavenworth. Can't have it both ways. Reeves almost smiled. Actually, Specialist, we can. That's kind of how the military works. You can be both right and wrong simultaneously. It's called the fog of war. This isn't fog, this is clarity. I did what my team would have wanted. I completed the mission. I saved lives. If that's criminal, then court-martial me. But don't pretend it's complicated. Everything about this is complicated. Only if you make it complicated, sir. Another silence. Then Reeves stood. Take 5, everyone. We'll reconvene in 20 minutes. The officers filed out. The civilian woman lingered for a moment, studying Chen, then followed. A guard remained by the door but moved to give them minimal privacy. Vance shifted closer to Chen. You okay? Define okay. Are you going to survive this? She looked at her hands, the cuffs, the marks on her arms visible beneath them. I survived 18 months in that valley. I can survive a court-martial. That's not what I asked. Chen met his eyes. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I care anymore. I did what I set out to do. Marks is in custody. The evidence exists. The rest is just accounting. The rest is your life. My life ended with my team. Everything after that has been borrowed time. Chen, I mean it. I should have died with them. The fact that I didn't, I've spent 18 months trying to justify it, trying to balance the scales, and I still don't know if it's enough. 26 people would say it's enough. 19 people would disagree, Vance wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she'd done everything possible, that survivor's guilt was a liar. But he'd lost Carter and Ortega. He knew exactly what she meant. What do you want? He asked instead. If you could write the ending to this story, what would it be? Chen thought about it. I want Marks and everyone like him to face consequences. I want the soldiers I saved to know their lives mattered, and I want... She trailed off. What? I want to stop counting. I want to look at my arms and not see a ledger. I want to sleep without hearing my team leader's last words. I want one single day where I don't calculate survival probabilities and threat assessments and how many people I can save before the numbers run out. Her voice cracked slightly. I want to be a person again, instead of a weapon. Vance didn't know what to say to that. The door opened. The officers returned. Reeves sat down. We've made a decision. Chen straightened. Specialist Kara Chen, you're being charged with desertion, unauthorized absence, and conduct unbecoming. You'll face a court-martial within 60 days. Chen nodded. She'd expected this. However, Reeves continued, given the circumstances, you'll be released to restricted quarters pending trial. You'll surrender your weapons and remain on base. No contact with witnesses. No media. No discussion of ongoing investigations. Understood, sir. Sergeant Vance, you and your unit will provide sworn statements regarding both encounters with Specialist Chen. Your testimony will be entered into evidence. Yes, sir. Reeves looked at both of them. Off the record? What you did out there? It was reckless, dangerous, completely outside protocol. He paused. It was also probably the right thing, but that doesn't make it legal. And legal matters in the military, so we're going to let the court-martial board sort it out. Sir, Chen said quietly, the other names, the network Marks mentioned, are you going to investigate? That's above your pay grade now, Specialist. With respect, sir, it's always been above my pay grade. Didn't stop me before. Reeves almost smiled again. No, it didn't, which is either admirable or insane. Possibly both. He stood. You're dismissed, both of you. Guard will escort you to your respective quarters. They stood. Chen's handcuffs were removed. As they walked toward the door, Matthews called out, Specialist? Chen turned. Those marks on your arms, are you going to add more? She looked down at her tattoos. 26 lines, 26 lives, 26 pieces of a debt that might never balance. I don't know, sir. Haven't decided yet. Well, when you do decide, remember that the people you saved aren't numbers. They're soldiers. They have names. I know their names. Do you? Chen blinked. Matthews pulled out a sheet of paper, started reading. Private First Class Sarah Liu, Corporal James Rains, Specialist Marcus Webb, Lieutenant Jennifer Kowalski, Sergeant David Torres. He went through all 26 names. Chen's eyes got wet. I know them, she whispered. Then stop counting them like tallies and start counting them like people. He set the paper down. You're not a ledger specialist. You're a soldier who saved lives. There's a difference. Chen nodded, couldn't speak. The guard led them out. In the hallway, Vance walked beside her. He's right, you know. I know. So what are you going to do? Chen looked at her arms again, then at Vance. Survive the court-martial, testify against Marks. Help nail whoever else is involved. And after that? She smiled, small, genuine. After that? Maybe I stop counting and start living. You mean it? I don't know, but I'm willing to try. They reached the administrative building. Two paths diverged. Chen's quarters were east. Vance's were west. Before they separated, Chen held out her hand. Thank you, Sergeant, for not giving up on me, for following me into that bunker, for treating me like a soldier instead of a ghost. Vance shook her hand. Thank you for saving my life. Twice. 26 times now, but who's counting? They both smiled at that. Then Chen turned and walked away, escorted by her guard, heading toward whatever future the court-martial would decide. Vance watched her go. Then he headed to his own quarters. Tomorrow there would be statements to give, forms to fill out, investigations to cooperate with. But tonight, for the first time in weeks, he might actually sleep. Because the valley was behind them. The traitor was in custody, and Kara Chen was finally, maybe, going to stop counting. 3 months later, Vance sat in the gallery of a military courtroom and watched Kara Chen face her judges. The trial had been closed to the public, but open to military personnel. The room was packed. Soldiers Chen had saved, officers who'd lost men in that valley, investigators still piecing together the scope of Marks's betrayal. The prosecutor made his case. Desertion, unauthorized operations, chain of command violations. The defense made theirs. Mission completion. Lives saved. Exceptional circumstances. Witnesses testified. Rains described the first ambush. Liu corroborated. Mendez explained the second deployment. One by one, soldiers Chen had saved took the stand and told their stories. The cumulative effect was powerful. By day 3, the narrative had shifted. This wasn't a trial about a rogue soldier. It was a trial about what happens when the system fails and someone has to step up. On day 5, Chen herself testified. She was calm, direct, unflinching. She didn't make excuses, didn't claim trauma or diminish capacity, didn't ask for sympathy. She simply explained what she'd done and why. I made a choice, she said. Stay within protocol and watch more soldiers die. Or step outside protocol and try to save them. I chose to save them. If that's criminal, I accept the consequences. The prosecution tried to break her. Failed. The defense tried to paint her as a hero. She rejected that too. I'm not a hero. I'm someone who couldn't live with doing nothing. That's all. The judges deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was swift. Guilty of unauthorized absence. Not guilty of desertion. Not guilty of conduct unbecoming. The sentence, time served plus reduction in rank to private. Formal reprimand on her service record. No jail time. No dishonorable discharge. The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered. Some objected. The judges gavelled for order. Chen stood at attention, face neutral, as the sentence was read. When it was over, when the formalities concluded and the gallery cleared, Vance found her outside. She looked different, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted. How do you feel? He asked. Honestly, relieved. I thought they might lock me up. You got off light. I got what I deserved, which is more than I expected. They walked across the parade ground. Evening sun painted everything gold. What now? Vance asked. Now I finish my contract. 8 more months, then I'm out. Out of the military? Out of everything. I think I've had enough of war for one lifetime. What will you do? She held up her arms. The tattoos were still there, 26 marks, but she'd added something new, names, small, precise, written next to each tally. I'll remember, she said. All of them. The ones who died, the ones who lived, all of it. That's not a plan. It's a start. They reached the administrative building. Chen stopped. I got a letter, she said, from Webb, Marcus Webb, the corporal I saved 9 months ago. What did he say? He said thank you, and he said he's getting married next spring, wants me to come to the wedding. Are you going? I don't know. Seems strange, going to celebrate life when I've spent so long counting death. Seems appropriate to me. Chen smiled. Maybe. I'll think about it. She turned to go, then stopped. Vance? Yeah? That thing you said. In the debriefing, about me treating you like numbers. You were right. I did. For 18 months, that's all I could see. Numbers that needed balancing. And now? Now I see people. It's terrifying, but better. Better how? People are messier than numbers. Harder to categorize, harder to understand. But they're also more real, more worth saving. She paused. So thank you for reminding me that I'm people too. Then she walked away. Vance stood there for a moment, watching her disappear into the evening crowd. Then he pulled out his phone and called Rains. Hey, you still want to grab that beer? Always. Where? The place off base, the one that doesn't ask questions. Perfect. Liu's coming too, maybe Mendez. Yeah? Yeah. We figure we should stick together, people who've been through what we have. Vance smiled. Sounds good. See you in 20. He hung up. Then he looked toward the mountains in the distance, toward the valley that had tried to kill them all. It was still out there, still dangerous, still taking lives when it could. But for now, for tonight, they were here, alive, together, counting blessings instead of bodies. And that, Vance thought, was worth celebrating. He headed toward the gate. Behind him, the sun set on another day. Ahead, the future waited, uncertain, messy, complicated, but survivable. And sometimes survival was enough. If you or someone you know is having a difficult time, free support is available. Find resources. The bar was exactly the kind of place soldiers went to forget. Dim lighting, cheap beer, jukebox playing songs from a decade ago. Bartender who'd seen too much to care about anything anymore. Vance found Rains and Liu at a corner booth. Mendez showed up 10 minutes later, still limping slightly from the leg wound that hadn't quite healed right. They ordered a round, then another. Nobody talked about the valley at first. They talked around it. Safe topics, sports, weather, the bureaucratic nightmare of military paperwork. But eventually, inevitably, the conversation circled back. You think she's okay? Liu asked. Chen, I mean. Vance swirled his beer. Define okay? You know what I mean. After everything. She's alive. She's free. She's not in Leavenworth. That's better than it could have been. That's not what I asked. Rains leaned back. She's not okay. Probably won't be for a long time. Maybe never. You don't spend 18 months in survival mode and just snap back to normal. Does anyone snap back? Mendez asked quietly. After combat? Silence answered him, because the truth was that none of them were okay either. Carter was still dead. Ortega too. Kim. Hassan had been medically discharged. The leg injury was career-ending. They all carried scars, some visible, most not. I got a call, Vance said, from intelligence. They arrested 2 more officers. Marks gave them up during interrogation. How many total? Liu asked. 4 so far. They think there might be more. The network was bigger than anyone realized. Because of Chen. Yeah, because of Chen. Mendez raised his glass. To Specialist Chen, who saved our asses and then saved a lot more. They drank to that. The jukebox switched songs. Something slow and melancholic about roads and choices and things left behind. What do you think she'll do? Rains asked. After her contract ends? Disappear, Vance said. Find some quiet place where nobody knows her story. Try to be normal. Can you be normal after that? I don't know, but she deserves the chance to try. Liu's phone buzzed. She checked it, smiled. Shepard just texted. He's getting released from the hospital next week. Says he wants to meet up. How's he doing? Better. Physical therapy is working. Might even get full range of motion back in that shoulder. More good news in a story that had precious little of it. They talked for another hour. Eventually the conversation drifted to other things. Plans for leave, family, the future beyond the military. But underneath it all, the valley was still there. Still part of them. Still shaping who they'd become. When the bars started closing, they paid their tab and walked out into the night air. You ever think about going back? Mendez asked. To the valley? Never, Rains said immediately. Liu shook her head. That place took enough from us. Vance didn't answer right away, because part of him did think about it. Not to relive the trauma, but to understand it, to see if it still held the same power now that the immediate threat was gone. Maybe someday, he said finally, when it doesn't hurt as much. And when will that be? I'll let you know when I figure it out. They split up, headed to separate quarters, separate lives, but connected by something that couldn't be broken by distance or time. They'd survived together. And that created a bond stronger than protocol or rank or any official designation. That night, Vance lay in his bunk and stared at the ceiling. He thought about Chen, about her tattoos, about the way she'd looked when the verdict came down, relieved but not happy, freed but not whole. He wondered if she was sleeping, if the nightmares had stopped, if she'd ever truly escaped the valley, or if it would follow her forever. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Vance? Silence. Then breathing. Then a voice he recognized. It's Chen. He sat up. You okay? Yeah, just needed to hear a friendly voice. It's 2 a.m. I know. Sorry, It's fine. What's going on? She was quiet for a moment. I can't sleep. Keep thinking about everything. The trial. The verdict. What comes next? What does come next? I don't know. That's the problem. For 18 months I had a purpose, a mission. Even if it was self-imposed and probably insane, it was still something. Now that's gone, and I don't know what to do with myself. Vance understood that. Purpose was easier than peace. Missions were clearer than freedom. Maybe you don't need to know yet, he said. Maybe you just need to exist for a while. No counting, no missions, just being. I don't know how to do that. Neither do I, but we can figure it out. We? You're not the only one struggling with what comes next, Chen. All of us are. The whole unit. Everyone who went through that valley. We're all trying to figure out how to be normal again. Are we succeeding? Not particularly, but we're trying. That counts for something. She laughed softly. Does it? Has to, otherwise what's the point? More silence, then, I'm going to Webb's wedding. Yeah? Yeah, he sent another letter, said his fiancée wants to meet me, said they're naming their first kid after me if it's a girl. That's... wow. I know, it's crazy, but also kind of amazing that something I did resulted in life instead of death. That feels important. It is important. I called my sister too. Haven't talked to her in 2 years. She cried. Then she yelled at me. Then she cried some more. But she wants to meet. Wants me to come home for a visit. You gonna go? I think so. Feels scary, but good scary. Like maybe I can start rebuilding things I burned down. Vance smiled. That sounds healthy. Healthy is weird. I'm not sure I like it yet. You will. Eventually. Another pause. Vance? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for not giving up on me, for following me into that bunker, for testifying at the trial, for calling me people instead of numbers. You are people, Chen. I'm starting to believe that, some days. That's progress. Is it enough? It's a start. She was quiet for a long moment. I should let you sleep. You should sleep too. I'll try. No promises. Fair enough? Good night, Vance. Good night, Chen. She hung up. Vance set the phone down and stared at the ceiling again, but this time he was smiling because Chen was trying. Fighting her way back to humanity one phone call at a time, and that was worth celebrating. The next 8 months passed in a blur of routine, training exercises, paperwork, evaluations, the normal rhythm of military life that felt both comforting and suffocating after everything they'd been through. Vance didn't see Chen much. She'd been assigned to different duties, administrative work, nothing that involved weapons or combat, the military's way of keeping her busy while they decided what to do with her long term. But they texted occasionally, brief updates, check-ins. He learned she'd gone home, spent 2 weeks with her sister, met her nephew for the first time. She learned he'd been recommended for promotion, Sergeant First Class, recognition for leadership under fire. Neither of them mentioned the valley unless necessary. It was still there, still part of their story, but it didn't define them anymore. Then, 3 weeks before Chen's contract ended, Vance got a call from intelligence. Sergeant Vance, this is Colonel Diaz. I need you to come to my office, now. Diaz's office was in the secure building. Vance had to show ID 3 times just to get through the door. Inside, he found Diaz sitting with 2 other officers and a civilian he didn't recognize. Sergeant, have a seat. Vance sat. Diaz slid a folder across the desk. We've been investigating the network Colonel Marks was part of. Based on the evidence Specialist Chen recovered, we've identified 7 compromised officers. 3 are already in custody. 2 more will be arrested this week. That's good news, sir. It is, but it's also created a problem. We need someone to testify, someone who was there, someone who can connect the dots between the ambushes, the intelligence leaks, and the operational betrayals. Chen. Ideally, yes, but her credibility is complicated by her court-martial. Defense lawyers will use that to undermine her testimony. So you need someone else. We need you. And your unit. Everyone who encountered Chen in the field. Everyone who survived because of her intervention. Vance felt his stomach tighten. Sir, we've already given statements. We need more than statements. We need sworn testimony in federal court, multiple trials, possibly years of litigation. Years? This is the largest military corruption case in decades. It's going to take time to prosecute everyone involved. The civilian spoke up. Sergeant, we understand this is asking a lot, but these men betrayed their country, sold out their soldiers. They need to face consequences. I agree, but what are you asking specifically? Diaz leaned forward. We want you to extend your contract, at least 2 more years. You'd be assigned to the investigation team, work with prosecutors, help build cases. Your combat experience combined with your direct knowledge of the situation makes you uniquely valuable. Vance sat back. 2 more years. 2 more years of reliving that valley, of testifying, of facing defense attorneys who'd try to make him look incompetent or complicit or traumatized beyond reliability. Can I think about it? You have 48 hours. Vance stood. I'll let you know, sir. He He left the office and walked across base, mind racing. He found himself at the memorial wall. Names of soldiers who died in recent operations. Carter and Ortega were there. Fresh engravings. Forever young. He stood there for a long time. Then he pulled out his phone. Chen answered on the second ring. Vance, what's up? They want me to extend, work on the prosecution cases against Marks and the others. Silence. Then, are you going to do it? I don't know. What do you think? I think it's your choice, not mine. But you have an opinion, she sighed. You want my honest opinion? The Valley took enough from us. Don't let it take your future too. These guys need to face justice. They will, with or without you. The evidence exists. The cases are solid. You don't have to sacrifice more years of your life to prove something that's already proven. But nothing. You survived. You testified. You did your part. Don't let them guilt you into thinking you owe more than you've already given. Vance was quiet. What are you going to do? He asked. After your contract ends? I got accepted to college, psychology program. Figured if I can't fix myself, maybe I can help other people fix themselves. That's really good, Chen. Yeah, feels weird, but good. Like maybe there's a life after all this that doesn't involve counting bodies. You deserve that life. So do you. So don't throw it away because you think you owe something to people who are already being held accountable. She paused. The Valley doesn't get to keep taking, Vance. We survived it. We exposed the truth. We won. Don't give it another piece of you. When did you get so wise? Somewhere between Mark 23 and 26. Trauma builds character or something. He laughed despite himself. Thanks, Chen. Anytime. Now go tell Colonel Diaz to find someone else. You've got a life to live. She hung up. Vance stood at the memorial wall for another minute. Then he walked back to Diaz's office. 48 hours later, he gave his answer. Sir, with respect, I decline the extension. I'll provide whatever testimony is needed for the trials, but I'm not re-enlisting. Diaz looked disappointed but not surprised. Can I ask why? Because I've given enough. Carter gave everything, Ortega too. I owe it to them to actually live the life they died protecting. That's poetic, Sergeant. It's also true. Diaz nodded. Understood. We'll work with what we have. Thank you for your service. Thank you, sir. Vance left. Outside, the sun was setting. Golden light painted everything in shades of amber and red. He pulled out his phone and texted Chen. I'm out. Contract ends in 3 weeks. Her response came immediately. Good. What's next? He thought about it. I don't know yet, but I'm looking forward to figuring it out. Same. Webb's wedding is in 2 months. You should come. To celebrate someone I've never met? To celebrate life. The thing we fought for. The thing that matters. Vance smiled. Send me the details. I'll be there. Good. Rains and Liu are coming too. Maybe Mendez, turning it into a reunion. A reunion for people who survived hell together. Is there any other kind? He laughed. See you in 2 months, Chen. See you, Vance. He put the phone away and started walking. Somewhere behind him, the valley waited. Cold, empty, patient. But it was behind him now, and ahead was everything else. 3 weeks later, Vance signed his discharge papers. 22 years of service, multiple deployments, more combat than most people saw in a lifetime. And finally, it was over. He packed his gear, said goodbye to Rains and Liu and Mendez, promised to stay in touch. Then he drove away from base for the last time. No ceremony, no fanfare, just a soldier becoming a civilian and hoping he remembered how. The wedding was in Tennessee, small town, chapel on a hill. 100 guests, most of them people Vance didn't know, but he knew the ones that mattered. Chen was there, wearing a dress instead of fatigues. She looked different, lighter, almost happy. Rains and Liu arrived together. Mendez came solo but brought a date, a nurse from the VA hospital who smiled at his terrible jokes. They sat in the back row and watched Marcus Webb marry his fiancée. Webb had invited Chen to sit in the family section. She'd declined. Too much attention. But he'd thanked her in his speech, said she'd given him the greatest gift, the chance to have this day. There wasn't a dry eye in the chapel. At the reception, they congregated at a table in the corner, away from the main celebration, but close enough to feel part of it. "This is weird," Lou said, "being at a party instead of a deployment." "Good weird, though," Rains added. Mendez raised his glass. "To the weird. May we have more of it." They drank to that. Chen was quiet, watching the bride and groom dance, watching families celebrate, watching life happen. "You okay?" Vance asked. "Yeah, just processing." "Processing what?" "That all of this is real, that I'm actually here, that I gotta be part of creating this moment instead of just preventing death. That's what you do now. Create moments, build life. Stop counting losses." She looked at her arms. The tattoos were still there. 26 marks, 26 names. But she'd added something else. Between the tallies. Small, almost invisible unless you knew to look for it. Dates, not death dates. Wedding dates, graduation dates, birth dates. The lives her 26 saves had gone on to live. "I'm still counting," she said, "but different now. Counting forward instead of backward." "How many so far?" She smiled. "Webb's wedding makes 17. Sarah Lou just got engaged. That'll be 18 next year. Torres is finishing his degree. Rains is buying a house. Shepard's baby is due in March." "You're tracking all of them?" "Not stalking, just staying aware. They're part of my story. I want to know their stories continued beyond the valley." "That's beautiful, Chen." "That's survival, mine and theirs." Webb came over to their table, shook everyone's hand, hugged Chen. "Thank you for coming," he said. "Seriously, it means everything." "Thank you for inviting us," Chen replied. "Are you kidding? You're the reason I'm here. The reason any of this is possible." He pulled out a small box, handed it to her. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a medal, not military, something custom-made, engraved, "To the Guardian who gave us tomorrow, with gratitude. Marcus and Sarah Webb." Chen's eyes filled with tears. "I can't accept this." "You already did, just by being here." He hugged her again and returned to his bride. Chen held the medal, turned it over in her hands. "I don't deserve this," she whispered. "Yes, you do," Vance said firmly. "You absolutely do." She put it in her pocket, wiped her eyes. "Okay, enough emotions for one day. Let's dance or something." "You dance?" "No, but I'm willing to embarrass myself trying." They laughed. The party continued, music played, people celebrated, and for the first time in years, Chen felt something other than guilt. She felt hope. The sun was setting when they finally left the reception. Standing in the parking lot, Vance turned to Chen. "What's next for you?" "School starts in 3 weeks. Psychology program at State. I'm terrified." "You face down an entire hostile network. You can handle college. Different kind of scary. But yeah, I'll manage." "And after college?" "I don't know. Maybe work with veterans, PTSD counseling, help people like us figure out how to be human again. You'd be good at that." "Maybe. We'll see." She looked at him. "What about you? What's next for Sergeant Vance?" "Former Sergeant Vance. And I don't know yet. I've got some savings. Thinking about traveling, seeing places that aren't war zones. Sounds peaceful. Sounds terrifying, but in a good way." They stood there in the fading light. 2 soldiers who'd survived the valley and everything it represented. "You know what I realized?" Chen said. "What?" "The valley didn't break us. It tried, but it failed." "Yeah, it did. And that matters, because a lot of people don't survive, don't recover, don't find a way back. But we did. We did." She held out her hand. "Thank you, Vance, for everything." He shook it. "Thank you, Chen, for not giving up. On yourself or anyone else." 26 times and counting. And counting. They smiled. Then they got in their cars and drove away. Different directions, different destinations, but connected by something that would never fade. 2 weeks later, Vance stood at the edge of the valley. Not the same spot. Somewhere safer. Tourist lookout. Marked trail. No danger. He'd driven 300 miles to get here. Hadn't planned it. Just woke up one morning and knew he needed to see it one more time. The valley stretched out before him. Beautiful, deadly, unchanged. He thought about Carter and Ortega, about all the soldiers who died here, about Chen's team, about the 11 names that had started her counting. Then he thought about the 26 she'd saved, about Webb's wedding, about Liu's engagement, about all the life that had continued because one person refused to stop fighting. He pulled out his phone, took a picture of the valley. Then he sent it to Chen with a message. Made peace with it, finally. Her response came 10 minutes later. Good, now let it go. He looked at the valley one last time, then he turned around and walked away. Behind him, the sun set over the mountains. Ahead, the road stretched into the distance, and for the first time in years, Vance felt ready for whatever came next. Not because the past was forgotten, but because it was finally, truly, behind him. 6 months later, Chen graduated with honors from her first semester. She'd found a mentor, a professor who specialized in combat trauma. They were working on a research project studying resilience in veterans. Webb's baby was born. A girl. They named her Kara. Liu got married. Chen was invited. Went, cried happy tears. Torres finished his degree, got a job teaching high school history. Rains bought his house, threw a housewarming party. Everyone came. Mendez proposed to the nurse. She said yes. Shepard's baby was healthy. He sent pictures. And slowly, incrementally, the count changed. Not the number of people Chen had saved, that stayed at 26, but the number of lives those 26 people went on to touch. Marriages, children, careers, families. Ripples spreading outward from a single decision to not give up, to keep fighting, to count forward instead of backward. Chen kept track of it all in a journal, not obsessively, just aware. Because these were her people, her 26, and their stories were proof that survival wasn't the end, it was the beginning. 1 year after the Valley, Vance opened a small business, outdoor adventure company, teaching people how to navigate wilderness safely, how to survive, how to respect the terrain. He hired Liu as his business partner. She handled logistics while he handled training. Rains joined as an instructor. So did Mendez when his leg healed enough. They called it Forward March Adventures, because moving forward was all that mattered. On the anniversary of the ambush that had nearly killed them all, they closed the business for the day, drove to a quiet spot in the mountains. Not the valley, somewhere else, somewhere safe. And they remembered. Carter, Ortega, Kim, Hassan, medically discharged but still alive, still fighting his own battles. All the others who didn't make it. Chen joined them via video call. She was in class but took a break. To the ones who didn't come home, Vance said, raising his water bottle. And to the ones who did, Chen added from the screen. They drank. Then they talked about life, about businesses and school and relationships and all the mundane, beautiful things that made existence worth surviving for. When the call ended, Vance sat on a rock and looked at the mountains. They were just mountains now, not threats, not graves. Not symbols of anything except the fact that the world was big and beautiful and sometimes brutal, but always, always worth fighting for. He thought about the message he'd received last week. An email from a soldier he didn't know, someone who'd been saved by Chen. Mark number 19. The soldier had written, "I don't know if you remember me, probably not, but I remember you. And I wanted you to know, I got married last month, starting a family, building a life. And none of it would have happened if you hadn't been there. So thank you for everything, for counting, for caring, for making sure at least some of us made it home." Chen had forwarded it to Vance with a simple note, 26 and counting. He smiled at the memory, because that's what this was all about. Not the war, not the valley, not the counting, the living, the fighting to create something better from the broken pieces. The refusal to let trauma have the final word. Chen understood that now. So did Vance. So did all of them. They were survivors. But more than that, they were builders. Building lives. Building futures. Building proof that hope wasn't naive and healing wasn't impossible, and sometimes the people who fall the farthest climb the highest. Vance stood up, stretched, started walking back to the car. Tomorrow he had clients. People who wanted to learn. To explore, to challenge themselves safely. He'd teach them, And in teaching them, he'd remember why survival mattered, not as an end in itself, but as a beginning. The mountains watched him go, silent, patient, eternal, but no longer threatening, just there, part of the landscape, part of the story. Not the whole story, never the whole story, because the real story was written by the people who survived, and their story was still being written, one day at a time, one choice at a time, one step forward at a time, until the count no longer mattered, until the marks became memories, until the survival became living. And that, finally, was enough. Some people don't survive to escape the war. They survive to finish what no one else could. But the truest victory isn't in the counting. It's in what you choose to do with the days you're given after the counting stops.